And for more on the talks in Moscow, we welcome U.S. foreign policy expert Scott Lucas to the program. He is a professor of U.S. and international politics at the Clinton Institute at University College Dublin. Thank you so much for being with us here on France 24. We've been in this movie before, Scott, a high-stakes meeting between the U.S. and Russia, and it seemed like Russia was just stalling to buy time or sanctions relief. Do you think that that's what's likely to happen this time, too?
I certainly don't think we're going to get a resolution today, but I think there's a twist in the plot line here in that we actually have two different proposals. And which one is, or Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, which one of the proposals are they going to be focusing on with Vladimir Putin? Let me explain. The first proposal is one that Russia has been developing since the spring. And at the end of October, Vladimir Putin's top economic advisor, Kirill Dmitriev, met Witkoff and Kushner in Florida to build it into, quote, 28 points and to mask it as Donald Trump's so-called peace plan. Now, in fact, it's not a peace plan as much as an ultimatum to Kyiv that Ukraine has to give up the rest of the Donetsk region in eastern Ukraine, which you've been talking about. It has to keep itself militarily weak with no membership of NATO, limits on its forces, and restrictions on Western military assistance. Half of all the profits from its recovery fund have to go to the United States. And meanwhile, Russia gets sanctions lifted and gets back into the G8 group of nations. Now, that proposal was taken to Geneva just over a week ago, and the European countries, including France, working with Ukraine, pushed it back, and they put forth a counterproposal. And that counterproposal starts with a ceasefire. We can discuss territory, military, economic arrangements, but there must be a ceasefire on the basis of the current front lines. Ukraine does not give up more territory, and it does not give up the possibility of joining NATO. And the reason why that European counterproposal is viable is because the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, does not like the Witkoff-Kushner proposal. Mm-hmm. Therefore, he was willing to work with Europeans.
Now, Russia had signaled that it really liked that original peace plan, though, since it, was really favorable to them. That's the one that you said caused a firestorm of backlash in Europe. So I don't imagine that Russia would take this altered deal so well, that it would be received well.
No, they won't. They'll reject it. But the question here is, what about Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's envoys? Are they there to tell Vladimir Putin, we know you might not like the idea of a ceasefire, but there has to be one? Or are they there to say, hi, sorry, the Europeans don't like this. What can we do to work with you to repackage your proposal to try to push it and almost force it upon Ukraine? In other words, I must be very honest with you, Witkoff and Kushner have been working with the Kremlin on the side of the Kremlin. So it's not necessarily a meeting today to present a proposal to Putin as much to make arrangements with him. That's the real worry that European services have, which is why those European services have been going to the media and saying quite rightly that the reason why Kushner and Witkoff have been working with the Kremlin is because of Russia's proposal for joint U.S.-Russian economic projects, including in rare earth minerals, including in the energy sector, including in other areas of manufacturing, and that in effect, the Kremlin's plan, which is being promoted by Witkoff and Kushner, has these profits for members of the Trump administration, but of course, who's going to pay for those profits would be Kyiv.
So say that the U.S. does want to try to push Russia to make some concessions or to stop stalling. What theoretically could the U.S. do to bring Russia on board? I mean, would economic incentives really be enough?
No, look, what you're asking me here is what are Vladimir Putin's minimum conditions for agreeing to stop his invasion? And you've identified them already, that the minimum conditions is that he is able to have de facto recognitions of the areas that Russia already occupies in the east and south of the country and of Crimea, and that he gets legal recognition of all of the Donetsk region, including the 22%, that strategic area that Ukraine controls. But Ukraine's not going to give up the Donetsk region. as the Finnish president, Alexander Stubb, told Donald Trump in August, that's the highway to Kyiv. It would leave Ukraine vulnerable. So that will be the sticking point. Witkoff and Kushner will go to Putin today. Putin will say, I have to have all of Donetsk. If Witkoff and Kushner come back and say he has to have all of Donetsk, Ukraine and Europe are going to continue and say, no, that's not possible.
U.S. foreign policy expert Scott Lucas, thank you so much for your time and your analysis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.